Smiling Friends might be over sooner than you think. Yeah, it's over sooner than you think, buddy.
Charlie, what does it mean? Charlie, you were my everything. World's f***ed up, man.
So last week I made a video talking about the inevitable end of Smiling Friends, covering an interview that Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack did with The Hollywood Reporter following the end of season 3. A fairly recent interview. I know a crew member said that this interview was about 2 years old, but respectfully, that's just not true. It's from the end of November 2025, which is old in internet time, but it's obviously fresh enough to make the revelation that the show already ended pretty shocking. Yes, Smiling Friends has ended with season 3. There will be 2 more episodes that premiere on April 12th, described by the creators as being stragglers as opposed to finales. Just regular, one more for the road episodes. Now the creators are ending it on their own terms. They're burnt out, but this still means that Smiling Friends was effectively canceled, as it was announced last June that Adult Swim greenlit seasons 4 and 5, with season 5 being the spot where Zach and Michael thought they would end the show just a few months ago. What gives? This is honestly a pretty loaded cancellation. You already got conspiracy theories flying around that this is a prank. They're preparing for April Fools. They're being silenced for that last joke in season 3. Or that this is Warner preparing to be bought out. There's a lot going on, so I wanted to follow up on my last Smiling Friends video and also unpack the unexpectedly large reaction the internet is having to this. It's a conversation that requires nuance, as there are a lot of pros and cons to this decision. Consequences that go beyond Adult Swim no make money. So let's talk about it. The best place to start is absolutely with the question, why did they really change their mind about seasons 4 and 5? A lot of people think something fishy is going on here. If you wanted to end the show after season 3, then why go through with letting Adult Swim announce a renewal? Why say just 3 months ago that you're content with it ending at season 5? One thing I definitely want to make clear is that this is a real cancellation. This isn't some elaborate fake out. You don't gotta believe me, but I had already heard that Smiling Friends would have some sort of break in the future, but I was just thinking that the gap between seasons 3 and 4 would look like the gap between seasons 1 and 2. And I thought at the very least, they would produce those next 2 seasons before taking a step back. But nope, it sounds like a satisfying season 4 just wasn't flowing out of them, so they're tapping out. So no, there's no big conspiracy. It truly is burnout. And you may be thinking, but the episodes are so short, and we only got what, 8 or 9 episodes per season? You're telling me they're gonna call it quits with only 30-ish episodes under their belt? And well, yeah. Have you guys just looked at Smiling Friends? This obviously is not your conventional animated production, which is already exhausting in its own right. Michael and Zach are super involved in every step of the process, and even if they aren't storyboarding every single episode or animating every single frame, they're still involved with wrangling up and managing the team of artists who do. Adult Swim gives them a lot of creative freedom, but that means they have to do a lot of coordination to keep this a well-oiled machine. And that's on top of just trying to make sure the show's funny. There's a ton of work involved with making Smiling Friends. And knowing Adult Swim, there was almost certainly an expectation to keep these seasons coming out on a yearly basis, meaning they would have to work harder and faster. And if that wasn't enough, they also have to face the anxiety-inducing reality that the show has gotten huge. This is the biggest Adult Swim show since Rick and Morty, and I don't know how to tell you guys this, but there is nearly a decade gap between these 2 shows. And you may not remember how big Rick and Morty got, but by season 3, it was massive, and it felt like Smiling Friends hit that level of success after 1 season. So just as I said in my last video, and as they basically said in the Adult Swim video, they don't want to be the next Rick and Morty, where the show goes on for too long after getting too big. Imagine having a zombie show and a fan base that everyone grows to hate. That's a fate worse than death. And if we're being honest, I don't think Michael and Zach ever stopped being chronically online, which makes sense because the show is produced remotely and they both have origins in online entertainment. It's kind of hard to refute given that, you know, people have gotten jobs on Smiling Friends through their fan art, so they're clearly tapped in. And because they're tapped in, there's no way they missed the fandom's growing fears that they would become the next Rick and Morty, or the constant criticisms that the show is losing its spark. And you may be thinking, who's saying all that? Smiling Friends is great. But you can find plenty of people who will swear season 2's not good, or that it's not as funny as season 1. Same thing with season 3. And even though I don't agree, comedy is subjective, those are your opinions to have, but there's a fair chance that the creators were exposed to them. And again, no one is in their head wondering if a show is good as much as its creator. And it wouldn't surprise me that Michael and Zach were on board for a season 4 and 5 because they felt obligated to. The show's huge. much, it's creating jobs in the animation industry, and more money wouldn't hurt either of them. Yet, I think while making season 3, they subconsciously knew that this was probably the end. Because now that we can look at this season with hindsight, it really does give the vibes that this is the end of the show. The building inspection gives us insight into how it was made. We meet the first ever smiling friend. Mr. Frog got a whole ass conclusion. Mo Man's whole character is, I've been watching you all throughout this show. And the season finale was Gleb's origin story, leading up to the moment where we see him meet Mr. Boss and form Smiling Friends LLC. Even if they thought they could try to make it to season 4, I think in the back of their minds they definitely knew, no, this is probably it. But also, yeah, of course you're gonna think it's the end. What other endgame stories do you have left? That said, we can still look forward to the episode Friendbot and Charlie's uncle dies and doesn't come back. That last one especially sounds like a good full circle episode to go out on, even if it's not intended to be a finale. But yeah, no shot this is an April Fool's joke when these episodes premiere on the 12th of April. What would the prank even be? Congratulations, you got stressed out. People are mentioning how this announcement is basically a recorded Discord call that went up in the middle of the night. And it's like, yeah, they didn't want to make the announcement. I know we're in the stage of denial, but how can you listen to these guys pour their hearts out and explain how much this does suck to do, and still immediately jump to the conclusion that this is fake news? Come on, y'all. And just like I said in my video last week, they don't want to pass this off to a different showrunner. And I definitely think that would not work for Smiling Friends, since it is so improv heavy. That show is Zach and Michael. You can't do anything without them. Their voices aren't enough. While it's good that Smiling Friends is wrapping up on the creator's own terms, there are some real downsides to it. The one is a much bigger deal than the other, and that's the fact that people who worked on the show and probably assumed they were coming back for seasons 4 and 5 no longer have a job lined up. Again, they were just saying 3 months ago that maybe after the next 2 seasons they'll be done. And either way, it makes no sense that when seasons 4 and 5 were announced in June, that the decision was officially made to end the show. Or else they, wouldn't have announced it? Those who are heavily involved with the show have confirmed that they did not find out through this video, but people are trying to use this as confirmation that, oh, we knew during season 3 that this would be the end. Look at the timeline! That's obviously not the case. But nobody is trying to throw Michael and Zach under the bus, so it's not gonna be a good look to point out that, yeah, they still took away jobs that were lined up. And I'm not saying that makes them villains. Again, it's a complicated situation, but you can already see people who are fans of Smiling Friends, or fans of Hadel or Cusack specifically, or people who just have a hard-on for hating the Western animation industry, doing everything in their power to downplay the fact that, yeah, if you're looking at this beyond the lens of a fan, there's more bitter than sweet to this story. I don't think the composer would say he's still in shock if he knew this was coming for a while. And anyone working in the industry right now can tell you that there aren't that many jobs to go around because, not that much is being made. I don't think Michael and Zach deserve any hate. Again, it's a complicated situation. They expressed repeatedly in the video that this was a very hard decision for them to make. It sounds like they were in the same position that Alex Hirsch was in when he decided to end Gravity Falls. If you're not a diehard Gravity Falls fan, then you may not know this, but Alex Hirsch was ready to quit the show after season 1. He had to be convinced by John goddamn Stewart to keep the show going. And he even said when he announced that the show was ending with 2 episodes left, that it was a very hard decision for him to make, but he knew this show wouldn't last forever. And part of the reason why it took so long for the news to come out was that Disney was probably hoping he changed his mind. Now, the industry was in a much healthier place back then, so it didn't really feel like there was a loss of jobs. But now, things are bleak. People who used to be showrunners are working as directors now. People who used to work as directors are back to being storyboarders. Everything is regressing, so there just aren't enough jobs to go around. That said, there are some bad faith actors online. As someone with no proven record of working on the show and no ties to any of the crew, claimed that they moved to Los Angeles to work on the show, and now that gig has been taken from them. And people who work on this show have confirmed that this story is bunk. I think part of the reason why people downplay this effect of the show ending is that the internet has become a place where if you're presented information, a lot of people also take it as a call to action. Like, oh, I'm supposed to feel some sort of intense emotion and I gotta do something. So it may be confusing that I'm saying, yeah, this is a hit to the animation industry, but I don't think the creators deserve any hate. But I'm just trying to lay everything out on the table and just keep you guys aware of the reality of the situation. And while you could argue they made a selfish decision, Smiling Friends is their baby at the end of the day. They're the ones putting their blood, sweat, tears, and soul into this thing. Obviously, everyone involved works their ass off, but they're gonna feel the brunt of it. I do think this also has an impact on Adult Swim, as Smiling Friends gets people talking about their brand, and it could expose people to their new shows. I'm sure it's a big reason why they aired Ha Ha You Clowns after premieres of Smiling Friends Season 3. And while plenty of their shows seem to be doing just fine, growing an audience independent of Smiling Friends, I'm sure they're not ecstatic that they just lost their new flagship show. This really is bringing the whole internet together, though. It feels like everyone's mourning a family of 5, if they were, taken out by their parents. But I think the existence of the Smiling Friends community shows that there's gonna be other adult cartoons that catch on. And I'm excited to see what else Hadel and Cusack cook up. I'm just glad for the memories the show gave me. I got to watch pretty much every episode of the last 2 seasons with my friends every Sunday. It was magical, and that became a ritual for so many people. Whether the squad was assembling in real life or Discord calls, I would always see people linking up to watch the show. And I think that's why this is such a devastating loss. You'd be hard-pressed to run into somebody who didn't like Smiling Friends, even if they were mixed with certain episodes or seasons. But as always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. How do you feel about the end of Smiling Friends? Do you think this is too soon, or are you glad they're bowing out now? Let us know in the comments down below, and keep the conversation going over on Twitter and Instagram at AllShrikVox and at Roundtable Vids. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable notifications on so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace!